What's up, guys? Got another knife review for you today, and we are looking at a fixed blade. A large, sexy looking, substantial, thick, chunky, heavy, cool fixed blade. This is the SOG Creed. I got this knife a long time ago. I've done videos on it. I've tested the crap out of this thing, and I've even gone past testing and into abuse. I posted a video of me doing gardening work, and not just like, you know, pruning the rose bushes. I mean, taking a large stump out of the ground, which is, you know, way past the normal capabilities of a knife of this kind. I have to say, I am very pleasantly surprised. I really am. Blade steel on this one is an AUS 8, but it surpasses a lot of the different AUS 8 varieties I've had from different companies before, because SOG does their cryo heat treat on all their steels. And basically what that means, they drop it down, the steel, to negative 300 degrees, and then they'll let it climb up back to room temperature. What happens is, by basically quenching this or using a very extreme cold temperature, the steel kind of, just like most things in cold, it shrinks up. And all the molecules kind of bind a little bit closer, and it, you know, adds strength ultimately. And they do that before they do the regular heat treat. So having that two-step process, which they're not the only company that does that, there's different variations on this. How cold, how hot you get it, how, you know, the duration of it, you know, what your original steel is, you know, composed of. There's a lot of elements and factors that go into what result you get from this. But I have to say it's very effective. And for AUS 8, for a knife of this size, I'm shocked. I really am shocked. I wasn't expecting all that much. I've had a lot of experience with AUS 8 stainless in all different companies, all different variations. And it does vary. This is something, a very strong point I want to make in this video, as well as other ones, is that if you have experience with, let's say, 440C, and you have a bad experience, that does not mean that the bad experience you have with 440C from that one particular knife is going to match a different company's knife. Or in some cases, even the same company's knife in a different model. There are always slight variations. 440C, AUS 8 stainless, VG10, D2, S30V, you know, all these different blade steels you hear of. And I know I'm procrastinating on doing a series on blade steels, but it's a general composition, okay, is what's going to make that steel up. There are very slight variations from one company to another, from one source to another. Sometimes a company will use steel and they'll get it from the same source as you know, the other company down the block. However, they're both doing different things with that bare steel, okay, which, you know, it ends with a different result. So the point being is that in this particular case, AUS 8 was definitely adequate. It could have held an edge longer, of course. Price is always going to be a factor, and the materials are always going to be a factor. Now, this knife goes for about $150 to $170 brand new. Now, right off the bat, if you've been into the knife, you know, hobby for a long enough time, a lot of you guys will write that off, and you'll say, you know, for 150 bucks, I don't want AUS 8, I want something better. That's not always really a deciding factor. Of course, you as the customer, or you as the possible knife purchaser, you know, the buying public, you're totally entitled to your own rights and thoughts and opinions and what you want in a knife. And if that's something that's a standard you've set, that if you're going to pay more than, let's say, $100, you don't want AUS 8, that's cool. That's fine. That's your personal standard. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It doesn't mean it's not good. I'm here to tell you that this worked very, very good. Surprisingly good. Surpassed some other knives that are more expensive that I've had. All right, so it's not always black and white. There always are, you know, different variations on things, and there's certainly different individual cases that kind of break the mold. And this is definitely one of those. I will say for $150 or so, brand new, for this version, there is also a tie-nye version, or titanium nitride coated. It's all blacked out, which is cool too, but I happen to like this look or appearance. For 150 bucks, I think this is a very good working knife. The fit and finish is fantastic. It's beefy. It's a heavy, you're talking 1/4 inch stock. It's actually right under its 0.24. All right, so just like a hair under 1/4 inch. This is a knife that's going to last you a very long time, that you can use, you can abuse. You can really beat on this thing, and it's still going to be there in one piece. But that being said, it really depends on what kind of knife you're looking for and for what purpose. there's a lot of stuff out there for the $150 range. All right, I do not think this is the best option out there for everyone. Just depends on your needs. However, I can tell you it looks really cool. I can tell you it works. It stays sharp for a decent amount of time, and it's a great chopper. I will also tell you that there's cheaper knives that chop better. So it just depends on what you're looking for. The cheaper knives that chop better may not have as good as a fit and finish. It all depends, you know? The K-bar buoys chop fantastically for their price range. I mean, just they surpass a lot of fixed blades that cost a lot more in their chopping power. It all depends on what you're looking for. But if you happen to like this look, I can tell you it's not a wall hanger. This is definitely a usable knife. All right, that's the biggest point to be made here. Now, if you think the handle is familiar, it's because it is. It's literally like identical to their tech buoy. The SOG tech buoys sport the same handle. Craton coated. It's got these white spacers in here. The Craton's very good for grip. It's a rubbery feeling if you've never felt it before. It's got a just a stiff texture to it. I mean, it's not squishy rubber at all, but definitely has a little bit of give, and it definitely helps in aid with grip in slick conditions. I've used this knife in the rain. I've used this knife mostly without gloves, but even with gloves it works just fine. I like the slight finger choils. All right, they have a 4-finger choil on here, okay? But it's not really deep, so it's more versatile to all different size hands. All right, you can have big hands or small hands, and if your fingers don't quite fit exactly where those finger choils are and they're slightly over, it's still a very comfortable grip. All right, so I naturally grab this and my fingers do go into the finger choils as it would by design, but let's say you had much smaller hands or much larger hands and your grip was a little offset, it's still very comfortable in all positions, okay? So this is something that you can grip and chop with for a long duration of time and not feel the fatigue because of the grip. And you're not gonna lose it. Even in the rain, it doesn't get very slick at all. There's a lanyard hole on the bottom. All right, if you wanna throw a lanyard on there. I used to use lanyards on my fixed blades, but as of late, I don't need them anymore. I like to wrap it up real tight in my wrist in case I slip off, but then I realized that, and this kind of dawned on me not too long ago, when I had a specific instance where the knife actually came out of my hand, and guess what happened? When I did lose the grip, not this particular knife, but it was a different fixed blade I was doing some testing with, and I had the lanyard all wrapped up nice and tight, and when the knife slipped out of my hand, I didn't lose my knife in the woods. I didn't throw it at someone around me, but generally speaking, I'm not doing testing with anyone around. It's just me, my knife in the woods. But what did happen was the knife stuck with me, and it swung down, and it came back up and almost hit me in the arm. So at that point, I realized, hey, lanyards may not be the best idea. If you do accidentally release your knife from your grip, what's going to happen is you're hanging on to that with the lanyard, and it's going to swing around. You don't want a nice big sharp knife swinging back towards you after you let go of it on accident. So I'd much rather chuck it a few feet away in the woods and go find it than have it swing back and hit me in the torso or God forbid the face or something, or take a finger off. So lanyards on fixed blades, I don't know. I guess it just depends on the circumstances and what I'm doing with it. Anyway, yeah, the grip is fantastic. Nice double guard on here. Does prevent your hand from riding forward. Has a very aggressive look with a double guard, and of course this huge belly on this beast, particularly from this angle. It looks like a sword or something. It's really, really cool looking. Has a fuller on here. There's a lot of different debates as to what it's for. People call them blood grooves, and there's a lot of mystery behind it, but the real purpose of a fuller, it's kind of dual purpose. The first purpose is to lighten the blade a little bit. When you have a lot of chunk, a lot of steel here, it does take away from that a little bit. It lightens it just slightly. Also, for looks, there's nothing wrong with that. They do serve a purpose. A lot of people will tell you that, when you gut something or stick something, if you're fighting someone and you stick this into their gut, it allow the airflow to let them bleed out, as opposed to just the blade being in there. It's a suction, blah, 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 blah. How many people use stab lately, For your purpose, it's going to lighten the blade slightly and it's going to look cool. That's all you need to know for now. But, yeah, overall, it's definitely blade heavy. All right, because of that huge belly. You can see here the balance point is right above. It's right above your handle here. Okay. 12.8 ounces on this, so it's not a lightweight by any means. Again, you know, just under a 1/4 inch stock, so you wouldn't think that it'd be super light. But I have to say, it's not heavy wielding in the hand. Chopping with this, taking the stump out, I did feel fatigue, but that's literally like a half an hour of just continuous chopping and swinging, and you know, then it started feeling really heavy in my hand. Felt like I was swinging a brick. But for most of what you guys are gonna do with it, you know, coming in at 12.8 ounces is actually not too bad at all. I have to say, overall, it's a really, really nice knife. I just think that the price should probably be just a little bit less, maybe $120, you know, 130 bucks. You know, once you get into 150, 160, 170, I mean, that's around what these are going for. 150 is on the low side, 170 is on, you know, about tops of what you're gonna pay for this. You are getting into a quite competitive market out there, and there's a lot of options for you. So, I mean, if this is 100 bucks, I'd say, why don't you own one? It's amazing. But for 150, it's kind of like, you know, if the design appeals to you, go for it. But I am here to tell you that it is a workhorse, and it is functional. Is it the best chopper? No, but it's better than a lot of the knives out there. Now, as far as the grind on here, towards the base here, it's hard because I don't have like a micrometer or anything to measure these, but it's very thin stock. You know, there's a decent amount of space between the top of the grind and your edge. All right, so it thins out quite nicely, and it's razor sharp, you know, when you get it out of the box. All right, now as we get towards the tip here, the tip I have a problem with because it's kind of chunky. Let me see if I can get this to focus in a little bit. But the grind on the tip is much wider. Let's try this. Let's try a side view, get the focus. You see how wide that is right there? There we go, good comparison next to my thumb. Notice how wide your grind is, how steep that is, as opposed to down here, where this is like razor sharp, okay, and extremely thin. Of course, doing any kind of whittling work or fine work, a great grip, you know, for bushcraft, if you were to brace your wrist and arm against your knee, you know, bent down or kneeling down, and use your knife stable, and then use a draw stroke with your offhand to, say, strip bark off of a you know, tree branch or something, making tent pegs, stuff like that. You know, you have a lot of control, and this is razor sharp. Now, what you're getting with this wider grind, because the grind is even from the tip all the way down to the tang, that's nice for it to be even. And what you do get with this is a lot more strength in your tip. So it's not gonna snap off, it's not gonna bend, it's not gonna chip out as easily. But what you're getting, what's taken away from that, of course, is the ultimate sharpness of this, okay? The base here, your edge, your grind is very thin, all right? This is about, you know, what your grind would look like if it's magnified, right? So being very thin, it's easy to cut into material. Towards the tip here, it's not thin like this, it widens, okay? Now, the fatter it is, almost like an axe, what's gonna happen is it wedges into things. It's not gonna want to slice easily through it. There's a lot more resistance on material. The good part about that, and what I can tell you from personal experience, is that this knife is a very good batoning knife. And I will give you examples of that in the future. I will show you another demo video of this, because this surpasses a lot of different knives because of that. Because it works kind of like an axe, you know? It wedges in there with that wider front. And of course, you know, for finer work, the grind is a little bit thinner down here. So, you know, it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other. It just depends on what you're looking for in your knife. But as far as a wilderness knife, because a lot of people would, you know, you're looking for fixed blades for that purpose, you know, maybe something to play around with when you're hiking, or, you know, bushcraft, or God forbid you do get stranded, you want to have some substantial knife that you can maybe survive with. Is this a consideration? Absolutely. I think it's a great consideration. Is it going to be your best option? I don't know. I think that it's a very good option. I think that in the price range, there's a lot of competition. Ultimately, you're going to have to be the judge of that. But I do think it's a very, very good performing knife. And I will give you demos again in the future, particularly with batoning. It's fantastic. The heavier belly, or the much wider belly you have on here, and that being it front heavy like this, it's real easy to initially, you know, get into your piece of wood And then of course with the wedge action, it's easy to split. So it's better than some knives in that case. So you can pretty much take any knife, and all the pros will be cons for someone else. It just depends on, you know, the intended use of that particular knife. I did want to talk about the sheath a little bit. It's got an old school leather sheath, which is very cool. It's got a button snap here, and you'll notice the cutout is for your guard. So when the knife is in the sheath, this wraps around your guard, all right, and prevents the knife coming out, right? Now, the first thing I like about this is I like leather. I prefer leather because more times than not always, but more times than not, when you have broken in leather, it's usually quieter than Kydex. Kydex rattles, you know, Kydex clicks quite audibly. When you click it in, you know, pull it out, it's a noisy sheath, right? I like leather because it's usually more quiet. Now, something with a button snap, obviously you take that away a little bit because you have to unsnap it. But even unsnapping it could be quieter for, say, like a hunter. It would be a big consideration with a hunter because you may be out in the middle of the woods, and of course the last thing you want to do is make noise. So I don't know, that's up to you personally. There are downsides to leather. Leather will wear a lot faster than Kydex. If you have a form-fitted leather sheath to a knife which does not have a button snap, right, or any kind of retention strap, it's basically just form-fitted like Kydex, it will wear faster and loosen faster than Kydex. That's where Kydex has the advantage. Kydex in general will last longer than leather, but there's an allure to it. I just like a nice quality leather sheath. It is a great quality sheath. There is one downside to this. They made the width of the sheath too wide, and it allows for a little bit of movement. Now, this does not look like much, right? Hardly anything, just a little bit of movement. However, because this has a short guard and because of the strap style here, this can very easily slip past the edge of the strap. So it can come out even when it's strapped in. All right, if you notice in the back here, it's just an old school, you know, drop down sheath style. So you're gonna be carrying this on your side like so. There's a hole in the top, dual purpose, first of all, for drainage. It does allow water that gets inside the sheath to drain out, but more so it's for a like a strap you would tie around the fat part of your leg. All right, basically your thigh. All right, so this drops down from the belt, and so you don't have this big wieldy knife swinging. This will wrap around the thigh to keep it nice and snug if you choose to use something like that. So it's not going to be an issue so much because you have gravity on your side. This knife is not going to be mounted sideways. It's not going to be mounted upside down. So you don't have to worry about it shaking out. But it's just something to consider. The positive with this is, let's say you are hunting, your knife's not going to fall out, but if you do need to get it out quietly, you can. You don't have to use that button snap. However, it does offer some kind of retention. But I still see it as a downside. By design, it's supposed to hold the knife in, and it doesn't. Not fully, anyway. So I will give a hit on the sheath for that. But besides that, I think it's pretty cool. Of course, the SOG logo. SOG's one of those companies. They put their logo on everything, so you never forget what kind of knife you got. Here it is on the handle scales. There it is on the blade, in case you forgot from the time you looked at your handle to the blade. SOG Creed. Very, very cool knife. I love the design. I mean, I originally got it because it is just a sexy looking knife, extremely intimidating. It's just cool. And there's no shame in buying knives because they're cool, or wanting to own knives because they're cool. However, this is not a special knife to hang on your wall. It's not a knife that's gonna fall apart if you actually try to cut something with it. It's very, very durable. It definitely went through the motions, and it's here in one solid piece. It's not razor sharp anymore. In fact, the tip is almost completely dull, but still razor sharp for the first probably 3 or 4 inches. By the way, if I didn't mention it, 7.5 inches on your blade length here and 12.1 inches overall. Okay, so you can get an overall size on this. Awesome knife. Not the best option for everyone. Just depends on what you're using knives for. But it's definitely a good one, and it's definitely worth considering. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. I thank you very much for watching, as always, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take it easy.